Thank you all for joining, both those of you who've come out and virtually as well. My name is John Metzler, and I'm emeritus from African Studies and Teacher Education. I will say a little bit more in my presentation since I have the honor of talking about the history of our study abroad initiatives in Africa. I'll say a little bit more about my involvement at that time, but it's wonderful to see all the faces up here, some of them whom I've known since they started to be involved with study abroad. So I look forward to our interaction.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Connie Courier. I'm an associate professor in the public health program in the CS Mott Department of Public Health. And I have been taking students on study abroad to Ghana since 2004.
Oh, hello, everyone. My name is Leticia Kirkilia. So I'm the faculty liaison and program coordinator for the Global Youth Advancement Network right here on the Dean's office. So we are now part of the Center for Global Learning and Innovation. And with that being said, I particularly work not with study abroad, but with COIL. So that stands for Collaborative Online International Learning. So I'm the program manager for a very exciting faculty development program that we have. And that's connecting MSU faculty with faculty in Africa. So that's a way of a different form of global learning, I suppose. That's not a study abroad, but it's complementary to study abroad. So that's why I'm here today. I'm very happy to see Jennifer Marcy, who is one of the faculty fellows for the program here as well. So thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, my name is Jonathan Choti from the Department of Linguistics, Languages and Cultures in CAL, College of Arts and Letters. I'm originated from Kenya, and I'm a graduate of MSU in linguistics. My connection with education abroad is I'm leading, for the 9th year, Sustainable Community Development in Tanzania, organized by the Tanzania Partnership Program. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Marcy, and I am a faculty member in the Department of Religious Studies. I am the director of our Global Nonprofit Leadership Master's and Graduate Certificate Program, and I am also a COIL Africa Fellow. And so I'm going to be talking about my experience with COIL and a university in Malawi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tatiana Iletskaya. I'm a doctoral candidate in sustainable tourism. I co-led a study abroad of marine biologists to Mozambique 2 years ago. And for my doctoral dissertation, I asked about their lasting impacts, which is what I will be sharing. I also happen to be a FLAS, Foreign Language and Area Studies Fellow for the African Center. Happy to be here.
Thank you. So I've been giving like a brief introduction on the states of education abroad today. And then Dr. Metzler will give us a historical perspective, of study abroad in Africa. And then the program will follow. And I'll call on the panelists one by one to their presentations. I would like to recognize Sandy Shalom also in the room, around the table. Sandy will be supporting John in terms of the history of education abroad at MSU in connection with Africa. So there has been a notable increase in US students selecting Africa as a study abroad destination. While Europe and Asia remain dominant in the global study abroad scene, Africa is increasingly being recognized for its unique cultural, historical, and academic value. This growing interest can be attributed to a heightening awareness of Africa's global importance and student desire for a more diverse and impactful study abroad experience. Many US students are particularly drawn to programs related to global health, sustainable development, and humanitarian work. Students in fields like international development, public health, environmental science, and economics often find Africa emerging markets and expanding economies to be an ideal setting for field research and hands-on experience. Michigan State University has a long history of offering diverse study and broad opportunities in Africa, which reflect the university's deep engagement with the continent. MSU provides a wide range of study abroad programs across several African countries, including South Africa, #1, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Ghana, Malawi, Senegal, Botswana, and others. These programs are managed by various colleges and departments, such as the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources, the College of Natural Science, the College of Social Science, the College of Art and Letters, and the African Studies Center, Department of Fisheries and Wildlife, the Department of African American and African Studies. The majority of these programs are led by MSU faculty and graduate students. In the 2021-2022 academic year, 1,554 students participated in MSU educational programs, although this represented a significant increase from the previous year. Overall participation was still 47% lower than the pre-pandemic level. Notably, MSU engagement with Sub-Saharan Africa saw 3% increase, indicating a sustained interest in African study abroad programs. MSU commitment to African studies is evident through its African Studies Center, which has been in operation since 1960. That's why we are celebrating, of course, of this participation. The center works closely with the Office for Education Abroad to offer both short-term and semester-long programs across the continent. MSU's extensive African library collection also plays a critical role in supporting faculty and student research, underscoring MSU's position as a national leader in African studies and international education. Here you can see this on africa.isp.msu.edu. That's what I got this quote from. Safety and support concern. Although Africa offers many appealing study abroad opportunities, safety and security concerns remain a significant factor for MSU students. To mitigate this risk, MSU provides comprehensive pre-departure orientation programs, travel safety resources, and partnership with organizations like International SOS to ensure that safety and well-being of students while abroad. I will conclude by saying that MSU continues to evolve its study abroad offering in Africa, striving to provide enriching academically aligned experience that also meets global engagement goals. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Metzler to begin the presentation.
Am I supposed to move this into in front of me? Are they connected still or not?
Yeah, no,
And so I'm okay.
Mhm.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. I wanted to start by saying how honored I really do feel to be a part of the 65th anniversary. When I was talking with my spouse this morning before coming in, I realized that given I retired 5 years ago, but I've been involved with the center since then. So starting back in 1987, I've been here for well over half of the 65 years of the center. So it's a real honor for me to be part of the celebration, particularly in this program, but also throughout the coming year. When I came to MSU following my doctoral degree at University of Wisconsin, I was not part of my area of responsibility was not study abroad. This was something that when I arrived, my mentor and dear friend, Dave Wiley, said, would you like to be involved? We just started a program at the University of Zimbabwe a year ago. We have students out there. You've worked in Zimbabwe. We would love for you to be our liaison person for that program. So I became, got involved right away from year one that I was here. And then with another very close and dear friend, Ann Schneller, we developed as I'll bring what we'll talk about, the first, I think, or if not the first, the second short-term summer program in Africa, started in 1992 in Zimbabwe that focused on education. So, and then since then, of course, up until the time of my retirement, I remained the point person at the Center for Study Abroad, then becoming Education Abroad later on. Beginning from those beginnings in 1986, there were two types of programs that developed in Africa. One, and this is sort of consistent with Education Abroad, Study Abroad at MSU, the short-term programs and the year-long are the long-term programs. Now, MSU's first program, as I said, was at the University of Zimbabwe. And when the program started in 1985, there was not an emphasis at MSU, there was not an incentive for the African Studies Center to become involved in study abroad. This was pre-Macpherson days, when there wasn't a lot of emphasis put on by the central administration on developing study abroad programming. And as many of you know, that our center gets its primary funding as a National Resource Center, a Title VI center. And there was no incentive at that time from Washington, from the U.S. Department of Education, for Title VI centers to be involved in developing undergraduate study. Graduate study, yes, through the FLAS program, but not undergraduate programs that would expose MSU students. In fact, there was a disincentive. Dave Wiley was clearly told back in the 1980s that this would take away, if emphasizing study abroad would take away points, because in our application for our 3-year renewal, because it's not on campus. They didn't recognize it as carrying the same weight as courses on campus. So in spite of that, we went ahead with developing the study abroad program, first of all, at the University of Zimbabwe. And there was a 3-part agenda here. One was to increase opportunities for undergraduates to be exposed for in-depth exposure in Africa. So that's one of the normal reasons why study abroad or education abroad programs are developed. Secondly, and this is part of the Title VI agenda, and we have one of our FLAS fellows here, is that we saw study abroad as undergraduates as trying to giving incentives and encouragement for the next generation of African students, graduate students, so that students that study abroad as undergraduates get a keen interest in Africa, come back, and in their disciplinary area will study Africa. And I'll just go ahead, quickly step ahead here to say that in our first 2 years at the University of Zimbabwe, we had 1 student the first year and 3 students the second year. In the first year, Andrea Rather, the student that was there in academic year 1986, she came back and got a PhD on gender, environment, and Africa. So that wouldn't have happened if there hadn't been this exposure, this study abroad exposure. Then the next year, we had one of the 3 students that went the next year, Todd Liddy, came back and did a master's in African history, went to University of Florida and did his PhD in African history. He is now the associate director of the Title VI Center at University of Florida. So there is a connection here on this second point in terms of promote that emphasis on trying to develop interest, the new cadre of African scholars. But then thirdly, and I want to emphasize this, the third rationale, which is a little bit different than the normal study abroad, is that part of our central core mission at the center, and it remains so, I know, in the 65th year, is building and solidifying institutional relationships with African institutions. Universities primarily, but also research institutions and NGOs that we are associated with. What study abroad had provided, particularly long-term, first-year-long program, then semester programs, was another avenue to broaden and strengthen these relationships with African institutions. So that's a little bit different than what the normal study abroad, the rationale for developing a study abroad in Africa. But it's very important in terms of the development of our programming there. Then, of course, in addition to the long-term programs, beginning in the early 1990s, we had faculty-led programs in the summer, the more traditional MSU model. As I said, my colleague Ann Schneller and myself developed the program Education, Society, and Learning in Zimbabwe that started in 1992, continued in Zimbabwe until 1999 when political situations changed there, and then it was moved to South Africa. And I continued to offer it every second summer right up to my retirement. The last time I did it was in 2017, so 2 years before my retirement. So that program's one of the longest term programs. And now, of course, there was a program. Part of the issue, as Jean-Paul knows, as we were starting this, part of the issue is that the database goes back to 2017 or something like that in this education abroad. So we couldn't find the information on all these programs, but one of the programs was culture and environment in Kenya, that was offered by what was then in the early 1990s, before we switched to semester, the old Department of Social Science and Natural Sciences. There was a program for both of them. So that probably started around the same time as our program, but I didn't have information on that, but those were so then there were programs then that are more traditional that we'll talk about in a bit. Okay, let me quickly go ahead. So our first program was at the University of Zimbabwe. Very importantly here, that this program came as part of an overall linkage. We have a very rich history. In fact, I think it was the second or third program in our African Studies at 65 that focused on advocacy in Africa. And David Wiley and Chris Root and Bill Durman and others talked about their engagement in the 1970s and 1980s in the liberation struggles in Southern Africa. And part of the commitment, part of that commitment, in addition to supporting the struggles, was that MSU would not have any program linkages, including education abroad or study abroad, in these countries until liberation took place. So 1980, liberation came to Zimbabwe, independence came to Zimbabwe. In the next 2 years, MSU was fortunate to get a large grant from the from USAID at that time, which was the largest since our Nsuka grant back in the early 1960s, institutional development grant. Part of that grant then, it was very broad, covered veterinary science, medical science, and there's a lot of people that started their medical research in Africa through that linkage. James Cunningham, a local sculptor and veterinary science, a veterinary medicine professor, did a year at the veterinary school and developed a veterinary exchange there. But part of that agreement, that memorandum of understanding in 1982, was that there would be a study abroad program at the University of Zimbabwe. Now, to do this was a real commitment on the part of the students. I want to emphasize this because the University of Zimbabwe, like many of the former British colonies, followed at that time academic calendar, a British system. So it was an academic year program. So to get credit, students that went, if they were going to transfer credit, they had to commit to stay a whole year. Not only was it a whole year, but it was not in sync with our year. The calendar year in the Southern Hemisphere is varsity starts in February and ends at the end of November. So that they left in the middle of their year and then didn't come back their academic year here. So that was a real commitment on their part. In spite of that, we didn't have a difficulty recruiting students. Now, we never had more than 4 or 5 students at one given time, but still they had, as I said, that from those initial students, we have strong evidence that it developed a strong commitment to the study of Africa. But there were some issues involved with the program, and I just want to list these very quickly, and then if we have time, we'll come back and you can question me about it. One of the issues was that they didn't have an Office of International Students and Scholars. There are an Education Abroad office. They did not have an office that had a tradition or was used to dealing with international students. So consequently, this fell under the purview of the registrar's office. And the registrar was a very nice guy, Dr. Zinyemba. He was a very nice, but he had many other things. The registrar is the number 2 person in a British university system. And so very, very busy, and to sort of have to deal with this in addition to that was problematic. And so it was not until Cindy, 93, 94, it was after you came that we hired George Madzima, who was a student, had been a former student leader at University of Zimbabwe, and then became a professor there. And he was hired on part-time to be a liaison with our students, and that helped. But so there were issues. There were also issues related to transfer of credit, because if it's a year-long course, students normally took 4 or possibly at the most 5 courses. These courses often did not have any resemblance or any analog in the MSU course catalog. So to transfer these credits back to MSU was often problematic. I remember I spent every February when we got the transcripts coming back, spent an inordinate amount of time negotiating with the various departments to try to develop so that the students wouldn't lose a year. Basically, if the course credits didn't come back, they would lose a year. So that was one issue. The second issue that became more and more problematic in the 1990s, those of you who are familiar with Zimbabwe know that political turmoil began in the 1990s, particularly on campus at UZ. And so there were often student strikes. And being a student, if you want to strike and you want to have the maximum influence, you're going to strike near the end of the academic year, because that gives you your position is stronger that way. But what happens then is that exams, because your grade is dependent on this year-long system on your final exam at the end of the year that they took in November. Well, if you can't take that exam because of strikes, how are you going to transfer credit back? The last 2 years of our program, in 1998 and 1999, we got around this because the students had to come home because the university was closed down. For Zimbabwean students, the exam was given, I guess, for the first time in February. But our students couldn't fly back to Harare to take the exam. So we had to sign an affidavit that we would put them in a room, and that I would sit in the room for 8 hours while invigilating the exam. Literally, this is what happened. And then I would seal the exams up and send it back so consequently, because of these issues, at 1999, we ended that program at the University of Zimbabwe, but it was part of our legacy. And so quickly, two more long-term programs. We immediately then switched and tried to develop alternative programs, but more the traditional semester length program. Fortunately, at that time, most African universities around the turn of the millennium had moved or were moving towards a semesterized system. And which was course-based, and so that it was easier then to transfer credits, and it was a semester length. We developed then in the early late 1990s and early 2000s, 2-semester programs, and Cindy was very much involved with me in these. One was at University of Cheikh Anta Diop in Senegal, and then one at the university, first of all, the University of Durban-Westville in South Africa. Then later, when the universities, South African universities, some of them merged as a result of the Universities Act in 2003, that the University of Durban-Westville, where we were, merged with the University of Natal to become the University of Kwa-Zulu Natal. And we moved the program there. I want to say a word about the University of Kwa-Zulu Natal because in 1994, big date in Africa, South Africa finally becomes liberated. Universities that did not have the tradition that MSU, of support for the liberation struggle, they decided they're going to go whole hog. And when they went whole hog into linkages with African universities, South African universities, where were they interested in? University of Cape Town, Stellenbosch, Pretoria, Witwatersrand. They were not interested in the historically disadvantaged universities. As a result of our commitment here during the liberation struggle, educationally, to try to work with the historically disadvantaged universities in South Africa, the decision was made, not by me, but by the African Studies core faculty, that our emphasis would be on one of the historically disadvantaged universities in South Africa. Now, we can't go into the history of why University of Durban-Westville. Anyway, we're University of Durban-Westville, which was the one traditional university that was designated for Asian population from South Asia, was located in Durban. So our very first university linkage was with them. And then as part of that, just like a decade and a half earlier with UZ, study abroad became part of that. So Cindy and myself went out. We developed a semester program at University of Durban-Westville, and then that later transferred over to, after the merger, to University of Kwa-Zulu Natal. So anyway, how am I doing for time here?
You got 3 minutes.
Oh, goodness. Okay, yeah. See, this is a rich history. How can you get a history? I want to just briefly talk about some of our collaborative involvements, because I think this is important. We develop, and again, I don't take credit for this. A lot of the credit goes to my dear colleague Dave Wiley in working with me, and also with the University, the Education Abroad Office. The biggest initiative we had started in the mid-1990s. We got a grant from the Office of Improvement of Undergraduate Education, which is part of the U.S. Department of Education, which allowed us to set up the National Consortium for Study in Africa, which was a consortium of, at that time, the 15 national Title VI centers for Africa, and from UCLA and Berkeley and Stanford and California to Boston and Florida and Gainesville, and a bunch of us are in the Midwest. Part of this, there was a 5-point agenda, and I won't have time to go over it, to promote high quality study abroad programming in Africa. So part of the money in the grant that we did is that we first brought together a conference in 1994. Were you here for that, or did that?
Not 94.
94, or 95, maybe it was 95, but it was the first year of the grant. And we brought representatives from the 15 different universities. What we insisted on, they were invited, is that if they came, not only was there supposed to be a senior administrator from the African Studies program, but there was also supposed to be a senior administrator from their Office of Study Abroad at that university. One of the shocking things for us, and this goes back to one of Jean-Paul's points at the beginning, one of the shocking points for us at that time was that more than half of those 15 schools, their representative from the Office of Study Abroad and their senior administrator from the African Studies program had never met each other before. So unlike our relationship here, starting back in the late 80s and 60s with Chuck Liozzo and others in the study abroad, and then when Cindy came in the 1990s, we had a very close relationship with the Office of Study Abroad. And so that I think helped us in terms of the type of programming that we were able to do. But it was shocking that that was not the case there. We also then, 2 years later, and I know you were here for this, we brought together representatives from 4 of the universities that had hosted American students. Sheikh Anta Diop, the University of Ghana, Legon, University of Dar es Salaam, and University of Nairobi. Representatives came here, and we met with them, with representatives from the 15 colleges, to talk about issues related to the study of developing study abroad in Africa. Then following that was in May, and then following, everybody involved in that conference went to the NAFSA meeting in Vancouver, Canada, and we had a special invited panel there that looked at study abroad. I don't have time to go over the guidelines that came out of those conferences, but I think I just want to highlight that in addition to the very important issues that study abroad and education abroad continues to emphasize on terms of student experience, I'm sure some of you that are older remember this, that the Office of Study Abroad developed, where, what the importance of study abroad and the personal development of students. The guidelines for study in Africa that we developed included those in terms of the student aspect, but it also went beyond that, because as I said earlier, we had an institutional commitment, and we had a commitment to reciprocity that was built in, equity and reciprocity, whether they were dealing with other African universities or dealing with NGOs in the communities that we operated both our long-term and our short-term programs in. So that was very important. One coming out of we had 2 videos that came out. It was serendipitous. The first one, Study in Africa, New Frontiers for American students, that came out. It was produced in 1999 very quickly. It was serendipitous. When we were thinking about this, we got a call from Terry, I forget what his last name is, in Message Makers in Old Town, which is a video maker. Terry, yeah. And he had been given a grant by the American schools. American schools are the schools that for American students in countries like Ghana, wherever, to promote the recruitment of teachers. So he was sent over there, but he had a lot of videotape that he could use. So he went back on his second trip, paid by the American schools, and we just had to add a little bit more. And he went to university campuses in West Africa, East Africa, and Southern Africa, and interviewed students as to how important it was to study in Africa. And then we followed that up with a longer video, Before You Pack, Preparing for Study in Africa. And this was more one that was oriented to long-term programs, and as opposed to short-term programs, but still. So that came out of quickly, 2 others I'll just mention. 2 other. Hey, listen, I gave 35 years of my life. Too quickly. Another thing that came out, we were approached by the Consortium for Opportunity in Education, which was a national organization that all the TRIO programs at over 1,000 universities. We were approached in 2000 if we would co-sponsor a summer study abroad program with them for students, and so we agreed, and I co-led this with somebody from that council. Developed out of that, Cindy and I wrote a grant the following year, and that grant provided opportunities for us to sponsor students, up to 6 students each year for the next 3 years, to study at either our University of Kwa-Zulu Natal program or our Sheikh Anta Diop program. And we had students over the next 3 years under this program from from 11 different institutions and I think 9 different states in the United States. So the collaboration was very important. We also had one grant that Cindy and I wrote that was for we worked with HBCUs, with 5 HBCUs to develop historically Black universities and colleges that develop programs to help them in developing programs. And that was in 2009 to 2011. So then finally, just one word, short-term programs. We didn't forget about those. And I am really pleased, and Cindy gets a lot of the credit for this. Starting from those 2 programs that I mentioned in the 1990s, the last thing from my information that I have that we had in 2017, we had 26 short-term not every year, but over those years, 26 short-term programs in Africa, 11 different countries, sponsored by all the major colleges: agriculture and natural resources, arts, letters, communication, arts and sciences, Eli Broad, Honors College, James Madison, and natural sciences. So that's something that we can be proud of. And I know Jean-Paul, and I'm looking forward to hearing about. Anyway, I apologize for.
No. That was great. Thank you. And very quickly, Cindy, you got something to? Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
He
Now-
covered it very well.
All right. Now, Connie,
Okay.
10 minutes.
I'll do my best. All right. Hi, folks. My name is Connie Courier, faculty with the Master Public Health Program. And this is sort of put together with another faculty member named Darlene Elreda, who is also faculty, and she goes with me, takes students to Ghana with me. So this talk will be about how the Public Health in Ghana Study Abroad program evolved over time. So in terms of origins, in 2003, Dr. Dave Wiley approached me and Cindy and Folu Ogundimu, and I think some other folks, asking if we would be willing to develop a study abroad program in West Africa, because at that time there were no study abroad programs in West Africa. So I developed a proposal. Folu and I conducted a site visit to Ghana in 2003, and then developed a program that was offered for the first time in 2004. It was called Ghana Multidisciplinary Perspective. It was 6 credit hours. 4 credits were integrative arts and humanities. So the intent of this was really to get students involved because they would fulfill required courses during the program. And then there was also a 2-credit course on healthcare in Ghana. So this was a 6-week program. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit. These are sort of the phases of development since 2004 to the present, how the program has evolved. So from 2003 to 2009, the program was 6 weeks long. It was located in Accra with the University of Legon, Ghana Legon, and we also did a short stint in Danfa. No, we haven't. Sorry. Just keep going. Okay. Okay. At that time, the affiliating colleges were Com Arts, which is where Folu was from, and I was in nursing at the time. That was from 2004 to 2007. And then from 2007 to 2009, Folu dropped out, and Ted Timms, who was in the College of Music, joined, and the program changed name from Multidisciplinary Perspective to Healing in the Arts in Ghana. It was a 6-credit program, again, 4 credits IAH and 2 nursing. Okay.
Yeah.
Are we okay? And then included in the nursing component was a 5-day community health assessment that was conducted in the community of Danfa, which is about half hour outside of Accra. Then from 2010 to 2014, and we had linkage agreements with all of the universities that we were involved with. 2010, the program changed dramatically. I moved to the College of Human Medicine to the Master Public Health program and developed the program so that it would be a practicum experience for our Master Public Health students. So both grads and undergrads could then attend the program. We affiliated with a new university called Mount Crest University College that had a public health program. They had a branch campus in Late, which is up on the ridge north of Accra. And that is where students spent the majority of their time conducting qualitative research with the community and local health officials in that district. It was 4 credits or 5 credits, depending on whether it was 4 or 5 weeks long at the time. They took 892, which is a practicum course, and then students who either want to take the program as an elective, they're graduate students who want to take it as an elective, or undergrads would take 847. So that we didn't go in 2015 because of Ebola, went in 2016. There are a number of years in here where we didn't go to Ghana due to illness, and also the fact that we had difficulty getting a second faculty member. Up until 2010, I was the only person who took students to Ghana. And there were 15 to 18 students at a time. And it was around that time, I think that Study Abroad said, nope, we can't do this anymore. You got to have 2 people. So phase 3, we have since changed the length of the program to 3 weeks. The main reason is that majority of our students are working full-time. And so they can't take 5-6 weeks off to do their practicum. So we reduced the time to 3 weeks. From 2020 to 23, students were in Late. They were still doing, it was community-based research methods was the title. We changed the title in 23 because Rebecca Mallowan from Osteopathic Med joined me. She and I went together. So we added an osteopathic course, it's the same course, just a different number. So OST 847 for the osteopathic med students who wanted to attend. Again, qualitative research with the community in Late. Then in 24, for the first time, actually was it 23? I'm sorry. It was 23. So the last 2 years, 23 we're in Late, 24 for the first time we were in Hohwe. So because of some budgetary issues with Mount Crest, we decided to shift the program from Late with Mount Crest to the University of Health and Allied Sciences in Hohwe, which is really it's a large public institution that has a good public health program. It's again undergrads and grads. The program's still called Public Health in Ghana, One Health Perspective. It's 5 credits. 892, the practicum students can take, as well as the 847 for public health and osteopathic med. And we last year, so I got a small grant, $5,000 from the Consortium of Universities for Global Health to purchase menstrual cups and do menstrual health and hygiene research with the folks in Hohwe. So that is what we did last year and will continue to do this year in Hohwe. And I just want to say too that the African Studies Center funded us travel grants so that my colleague from Hohwe came here in September for a week. And we've had folks from Mount Crest also come to Michigan State and give presentations. So the current program is 3 weeks long. One thing I haven't mentioned is that there's an online orientation that all of our students have to take. It covers logistics, culture, history, politics, culture. It gives them a very broad understanding of their experience before they go, because we feel that contextualizing that experience before they go is very important. The 3-week program focuses on qualitative methods. Students learn how to do focus group discussions, interviews, participant observation. They give presentations at the end to both the community and to professionals at the University of Health and Allied Sciences. Major elements of the program are that contextualization of the experience before they go. We focus on what we've called a social justice health equity framework in the work that we do there. That hands-on community-based qualitative methods is very important. We wanted students to be able to really say when they graduated that we have these skills, that we've done this in a lower income setting and worked collaboratively with partners in Ghana. Cultural humility and competency from the lived experience are something that it always comes out of the program. And that is facilitated by critical reflection. We have a series of journal entries that students are required to do. We give them prompts. We have, regular sessions where we sort of talk about their highs and lows and go over how their experience has been. 2 years ago, for the first time, added at the end of the 3 weeks, a 1-week service learning experience. I'm on the board of the Friends of Adanu. There's a NGO in Ghana that does work related to education and health. And so the last 2 years, we stayed an additional week, not all the students, just the ones who wanted to, stayed an additional week to do the service learning project. First year was a creation of a water catchment system, a rainwater catchment system for a school. And last year we helped to refurbish a urinal. And I think this coming year, we will most likely go back to the community we were in last year and build menstrual changing room. Our students have raised like $11,000 to support that. So these are just some photos. On the top left there, that is a picture of one of the focus groups that the students participated in. The top right there on the left, one of the things we learned that in doing menstrual health and hygiene research and also introducing menstrual cups was the girls needed access to clean water. And so one of the things we did before we left, we contributed as a program money for the construction of a borehole. And then there was a parliamentarian in the area who also contributed. So combined efforts of the university here, the university in Ghana, and the political leaders built a borehole so that students would have access to clean water. The Consortium for University and Global Health grant also provided resources for what's in the bottom in the middle there, that blue, it's a hand washing station. I think we had 7 or 8 of those that we donated to the schools. And then on the right are pictures from that service learning experience. Students are fetching water to make cement to help refurbish that urinary, the urinal for the students. And then on the right are just some, cultural experiences that the students had while we were in the Volta region with Adanu. So student reflections, these are from their journals. And I'll let you read some of those. It's very clear that students are able to integrate what they've learned, understand the value of community experience and collaboration, and the development of cultural humility over the time that they're in the program. I'll just read one of them. Overall, our work in Ghana involved promoting lasting community-driven solutions, while also learning and addressing the underlying causes of health problems and building meaningful connections. Our work in Ghana reflects the values of social justice, ensuring that we contribute to long-lasting positive change in the Hohwe community. So in summary, the program has evolved from a 6-credit, 6-week program that was targeted primarily at undergrads to a 5-credit, 3-week experience that now is for both grads and undergrads. We were in the College of Nursing initially, now are in the College of Human Medicine. The focus has clearly shifted to community engaged research methods. And this helps students, particularly public health students, to go and work in communities, collaboratively with communities. In addition, students have that opportunity to participate in the 1-week service learning project. And over the years, about 200 students have participated in the program, transforming them into global citizens, preparing them to engage with the world responsibly and thoughtfully. Many have gone on to graduate school, work in global health and other health professions with an increased understanding of the determinants of health in low-income settings, increased cultural humility, and a greater understanding of the importance of community engagement and collaboration.
Thank you, Connie.
Sorry.
See if I can do this without disconnecting.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Jonathan Choti. I'm from the Department of Linguistics, Languages and Cultures. I've been leading a program, education abroad program to Tanzania since 2015. Sustainable community development in Tanzania. This program takes place in northern Tanzania in a rural community called Naitolia. I because sponsored by the MSU's Tanzania Partnership Program, I'll give some background information on TPP and then talk about the program. TPP stands for Tanzania Partnership Program. It's under International Studies and Programs here at MSU, and it was started in 2008 as the first initiative of MSU's Partnerships for Sustainable Community Development. And these are long-term collaborative alliances of local and international organizations, so TPP is one of them. The partners of TPP include MSU, the University of Dar es Salaam, Sokoine University of Agriculture, and the two rural communities. Milola is found in southern Tanzania, and Naitolia, which hosts my education abroad program, is in northern Tanzania. The goal of TPP is to co-create a model of sustainable community development, build academic alliances with Tanzanian institutions and scholars, and also for development with the development practitioners. There are two major funders for this program, MSU and the Kolichowski Family Oil Foundation. Some of the projects TPP is involved in Milola and Naitolia include education, quality and access, water infrastructure and management, community health, the same actually for Naitolia, and also capacitating early careers, career researchers in Tanzania. Education abroad. This program was started in 2013 by TPP to expose students at MSU and the partner institutions in Tanzania to collaborate with the Naitolia and address some of the issues they have in that community. It's a 6-week program, summer 2. MSU students earn 6 credits, which they can use for their ISS, IH internships, depending on the students' majors and minors in their program. It's collaborative between MSU, the University of Dar es Salaam, and the Sokoine University of Agriculture in Tanzania. So it's a joint program. We normally recruit each summer between 18 to 20 students from the 3 institutions. I'm happy that in the audience here in person, we have 2 former graduate students, Kwame Yeboah, who is the current director of TPP. He was one of the students in and Tiffany. Yeah, Tiffany was my graduate assistant in 2023. Yeah, one of the best teams I've taken Tanzania since 2015. Tiffany, thanks for your support. So the program recruits graduate students as well. 2 from Tanzania, University of Dar es Salaam, 2 from MSU. And all the undergrads and the graduate students come from different backgrounds. It doesn't have to be specific programs. 4 faculty are involved, myself and my co-lead from University of Dar es Salaam, Dr. Vic Moshi, Dr. Kimera from SUA, and there's also a college, education college under UDSM. We have Dr. Urio. The funders I mentioned, MSU and the Kolichowski Foundation. Students are responsible for the airfare and the tuition for the 6 credits. The scholarship pays for their lodging, food, ground transport, educational materials for the 6 weeks. It's just a good scholarship. Historically, we have since 2015 to the current, like this year, we have recruited 8 at MSU. This includes 1 graduate student this year and 7 undergrads from different majors. We have a total of 82 students so far who have participated in this program from MSU and 92 from the Tanzanian institutions. That page you see there on the right, once intrepid warriors, gender, ethnicity, and the cultural politics of the Maasai development. These are very important reading in sociology and anthropology. Dr. Ochson did a great research about the Maasai community who hosts our 6 weeks program in northern Tanzania. That's our class textbook. We have the program is divided into 2 parts. The first 2 weeks, we spend on a small campus near Arusha, which is a very nice campus called MST-CDC. It was built by the government of Tanzania in collaboration with the Danish government. So some of the words are in Danish. I don't speak Danish. So we do on-site orientation, do familiarization about Tanzania and the program, and the bonding activities with the students. We explore development context in Tanzania from the book and other readings, historical trends, theory and practice of international development. We look at some national policies, relevant policies though, and also at the local level. We have some Swahili classes for 2 weeks. We also examine some cultural topics, team building activities before we can get to the site. Part of this first 2 weeks, we also conduct some tours and field trips to Arusha. The city of Arusha is an international city, very nice place at the foot of Mount Meru. We work with an NGO called ECHO near Arusha. We visit Tengeru Market to have this local experience. We visit a family in Nambala to observe the environmental rehabilitation practices. We visit Machame, the vanilla, coffee, animal cult, and dairy animal farming. It's a very intense family household, small holding, a farm near Mount Kilimanjaro. And then we have class discussions and presentations. We also invite some speakers who talk about education in Tanzania, development in Tanzania, the Maasai culture, and we also have somebody talk about TPP activities. Part 2, we move to Naitolia. Naitolia now is a very, very dry environment. We couldn't even get a place to stay near there. So we stay in a place called Mto Wambu, which means a river with many mosquitoes. But there are, Stephen, you can bear me witness, but we didn't say all those many mosquitoes, very nice place to stay. It's a nice lodging and campsite. They receive so many tourists from across the world. So we drive 30 minutes from Twiga, the place called Twiga Mto Wambu, to Naitolia every morning. We leave in the morning at 9, arriving at the community around 9:45. We stay there until 4 in the evening, and then we go back. Now, with the project we do, I want to give examples quickly because of time. Like the last 2 years, we have done community adolescent health and agriculture and food security. These are very important issues to the community. We have provided menstrual pads. Thanks, Karia, for what you are doing in Ghana. We are replicating the same in Tanzania. We supply materials like health hygiene materials to the girls and boys at the 2 primary schools we work with. Underwears, medicated soap, record keeping books, and we renovated a place at the schools to store these materials. The agriculture team also worked with the community to establish raised garden beds to enhance food consumption of vegetables. We gave them some tools and so forth. The other team worked with the to provide chicken coops, chicken feeders, workshops, training for the farmers, to sell some of the samples of the chicken coops we built, the donations with the school, boys and girls, and the raised gardens. Some of the pictures from the communities are very dry area, but you can see we have a garden there, which we established a few years ago. We also have lectures there. And then the student learning outcomes, different approaches to development, Tanzanian culture, history of development in Tanzania, challenges, and they also establish enduring relationships. Some of the pictures from the experience, and the final days, we saying farewell to our partners in Tanzania. I work with those 2 great people, Dr. Vicky Moshi on the right, and Dr. Kimera speaking to say bye-bye. That's really all. I have to go fast because of time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Timothy. We're going to have at least 10 minutes for question and answer. So right now it's 1:04. So we have 1, 2, 3 presentation left. That we can have at least 10 minutes for questions. Yes, Letitia.
All right. Okay, so I'm here to talk about COIL, as I mentioned before. So it's going to be a very brief presentation about global learning and COIL and what we have been doing in Africa. So first, I think I need to start with a definition of what is COIL, just so everyone is on the same page here. So according to the SUNY COIL Center, Collaborative Online International Learning, or COIL, is an approach that brings students and professors together across cultures to learn, discuss, and collaborate as part of their classes. Professors partner to design the experience, and students partner to complete the activities designed. So COIL becomes part of those classes, enabling students to have a significant, to have a significant intercultural experience within their course of study. So in a nutshell, COIL comes to life through a faculty-to-faculty partnership, right? So that's at the core of the COIL experience. So that will allow their students to engage in an online collaborative project, which will bring many benefits such as intercultural learning, soft skills developments, digital literacy, etc. So here in this image, there's a very broad example of what COIL could look like if you had two courses. So for example, you have course A and course B, and those courses, they're going to have their own discipline, content, language, assessment. So all of that is kept separate at the discretion of their own professors. But then you have COIL being this bridge connecting the two classrooms together. And usually that means some kind of collaborative project that the students are doing together. So they'll come together during those weeks to discuss those things online, come together with some kind of deliverables. And obviously there's some preparation that goes before that, some icebreakers, activities. Then usually the COIL experience, the collaborative project takes place, and then you have some time for reflections too at the end. So I just want to emphasize that COIL is really this bridge connecting the two classrooms to provide this global learning experience. And because COIL entails this shared experience that's embedded within those two academic courses, and that could be more than two, by the way, but to simplify, let's say it's two. So each set of students, they're going to enroll in each one of those academic courses, right? At their own institutions. So because of that, there's no issue of credit transfer between the universities. Also, no financial agreements needed because tuition is not being transferred or anything like that. It's really two classrooms running at the same time, two different structures, and then the students are getting together to really collaborate in that online environment. So now talking specifically about COIL efforts in Africa. So first we want to acknowledge that the African Studies Center have been already doing a lot of COIL initiatives in Africa. So in 2023, or at least for the last 1 year and a half or so, I have become part of the developing the COIL Faculty Fellows Program Africa. So like I mentioned, my unit, the Global Youth Advancement Network, and the Office for Education Abroad. So now we're together in the Center for Global Learning and Innovation. So we have been collaborating for the last 1 year and a half or so with the for the Alliance for Africa Partnership, or AAP, in this program. So this is a faculty, this is a faculty fellowship program, really designed to promote global learning between institutions, part of the AAP consortium. So MSU is part of the AAP consortium together with all of those universities in Africa. So the idea is really to have those classrooms connected. So the MSU students connected with students in Africa, the students who are at those institutions since they are part of the AAP consortium, right? And other aspects of this program are the promotion of sustainable internationalization efforts, COIL scholarship advancement, also support to a broader African-based COIL network, because not only we provide professional development for faculty, but also for campus coordinators at those African institutions as well, since the really idea of this project is to keep things going beyond that faculty to faculty partnership, right? So having someone on campus who also know about COIL, then if another faculty comes around, then that can keep on going in terms of the sustainability aspect of the program. So far, we have been able to launch 2 cohorts, so each one with 7 different COIL projects. And the year here on the top basically is when those COIL projects were launched. So 2024, that was really like fall, one course in summer, but mostly fall 2024. And then we still have projects ongoing for 2025 for this year. So like I mentioned, this is just the year that those projects are happening, because technically our fellowship program starts about 6 months prior to that, because we did a call for fellows, facilitating formation of teams, had selection processes, onboarding, the appointment of those campus coordinators, as I mentioned before, and also provided training for both faculty and coordinators, right? So there's a lot of preparation before they can actually run those academic courses, run those COIL projects. So in this slide, you can see in terms of the cohorts here, which colleges are part of each one on the MSU side, also which institutions on Africa, they are also part of each cohort as well. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to go over every single detail of the fellowship program here. I just want to emphasize that we have been hearing great feedback from their students and also from faculty. So from the students, I have a couple of quotes. So something as simple as, it was a class different from anything I've done before, and I really enjoyed it. So very simple comment, to something like, beyond cultural awareness, one of the most significant advantages is the opportunity for us students to explore career aspirations in a global context. So they can see the value of having this collaborative online project with someone from a different culture, and how that can potentially advance their careers later once they graduate, right? So if you want to know more about the program, I'm happy to chat anytime. And also that's the website at the bottom there, so you can see, you can find all the information there. And I'm not going to be talking a lot about it because, as I mentioned right in the beginning of my introduction, our next presenter, Dr. Jennifer Marcy, she's one of our COIL fellows. So you will hear more about her project and all of the good stuff that they did. And I just want to briefly say that we do have undergraduate students and graduate students. So it's a program that really, as I mentioned, because of faculty to faculty partnership. So then the faculty were the ones who are like, oh, I have this course and I think COIL was going to be a great fit and things like that. And those are my students. So there's a lot of flexibility. And I really want to emphasize that, how COIL is a very flexible methodology for teaching and learning. And with that being said, I just want to kind of talk a little bit about how COIL is positioned as global learning. So bear with me because I have a silly analogy, but I was kind of hungry when I was putting this presentation. So I was thinking, fruits and whatever food, I suppose. But if we think about global learning as a broad category of fruit, right? So there are different kinds of fruit, and some fruit are easier to eat. You can just go to the tree, pick the fruit and eat it, right? But some other fruit, you need a knife or you need something to take the peel off the fruit. So it takes a little bit more effort, right? Some fruits are more expensive than others. Some fruit are only available at specific times of the year, right? So I like to think about global learning as that. So there are all different sorts of global learning out there, global learning opportunities out there. So if you think about one of them being COIL, one of them could be study abroad, another one could be attending international conferences and so forth, right? So all of those fruits, they all complement each other. So I guess that's the point that I'm trying to make. So even though they're all unique, they all complement each other. And at the same time, if someone is just asking you for juice and they're like, I don't care which fruit, you can choose any fruit, right? So that's easy. But if someone is asking, I want applesauce, you need an apple to make applesauce. You cannot just make that with anything, right? And at the same time, if someone is asking for a fruit salad, you need more than one fruit. You can't just make a fruit salad with one fruit. So I'm making this analogy for a couple of reasons, but the two main reasons here is that more and more we see that employees, once the students graduate, employees, they don't want any fruit or any juice. They want the fruit salad. They want like an experience that it's very diverse in that point of view, I suppose. So they don't want just an example of international engagement. They want to see, okay, I want you to show me all the different sorts of global learning experience that you had. And some of those might be community service. Some of those might be experiential learning, and some of those might be online. They wanted to see, okay, show me that you have skills such as digital literacy, or skills that show how you can collaborate with teams that are remote, especially after the pandemic. That's a skill that a lot of employees really, are seeking out there. So, and the reason number two is that when you talk about COIL, a lot of times people think about that as a plan B. So as if COIL was a equal replacement to study abroad. And that's just not the case because, as I mentioned, they're all unique. So you're gathering different skills when you go through all this type of different global learning experiences. So it's not a replacement. Obviously, there's some overlap here, right? But most importantly, that I want to emphasize that those are different, those are unique, and they are going to bring their own benefits, their own challenges, and they also are going to cater to different target audience too, right? So as I mentioned before, benefits for COIL, for example, we have soft skills developments, and those cannot be achieved through a different kind of global learning experience usually, such as digital literacy, learning how to collaborate remotely in multicultural teams, etc. And those are skills that, as I mentioned, employees really value nowadays as well. So at the same time, one thing that we also see is that COIL can be a very successful entry point for students into the world of study abroad, right? Or education abroad at large. So perhaps the students don't have enough confidence, or they feel like, oh, I'm not so sure, can I do study abroad, right? They might be hesitant about that. So after they participate in a COIL experience, they actually might feel more confident now to go, okay, I can do this, I can go study abroad, and that's gonna be great, right? So we see that happening already, but we also see students who go on a study abroad and they're like, oh, I wish I could do a second one, a third one, but I just can't. So, how can I still keep going in terms of still having experiences related to global learning? I still want to be globally engaged and things like that. And that's when also COIL could be a great opportunity for those students who want to remain in that space, right? So I guess, like I said, it was kind of like a silly analogy, but I was just thinking about that. And I guess the main takeaway here is that I really hope that MSU can provide students with a diverse portfolio of different global learning experiences, with COIL being one of them, right? So then they have the means to make a really nice fruit salad whenever the employees are like, yeah, I want a fruit salad. So that's, I guess, my main takeaway of this analogy. But thank you. And we're going to hear more from Jennifer.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Jennifer Marcy, and I'm a faculty member in the Department of Religious Studies. I am the director of our Global Nonprofit Leadership Master's and Graduate Certificate online programs. And you just got a really great introduction to COIL, so I get to skip a lot of my slides. But I want to acknowledge my fantastic colleague at Luanar in Malawi, Zione. She was a faculty teaching a master's course in human nutrition, and I was teaching a grant writing course. So I'm going to kind of dive a little bit deeper into my program. We just learned all of that. So we had, my program is completely online and asynchronous. And so her course was in person. And so we took about 6 months to develop our COIL project. And so again, my course was a grant writing course and hers was a human nutrition course. And so basically we wanted the students to learn how to develop a pitch to a foundation, because we felt that that skill set would be valuable to students both at MSU as well as the students in Malawi. So the Luanar students were working on a case study. So they came up with a case study on a nutritional challenge in Malawi, and then they came up with a nonprofit to choose from. And they met synchronously and asynchronously with colleagues at MSU. And then because MSU students have access to the foundation directory through the MSU libraries, they did a search on potential donors and then shared that information with the students in Malawi. And then they identified a donor to make their pitch. And they kind of worked with the students because we weren't able to get the students in Malawi access to that database. The MSU students kind of taught them how the database operates and why they chose those specific donors. And then they worked together to develop a long pitch, which was about 12 to 15 minutes. and then a short kind of 2 to 3 minute elevator pitch. And they recorded it. They could either do it live together or they could do it, via PowerPoint asynchronously. And so then the students, we shared the pitches with all the other students, and everyone provided feedback through a Qualtrics survey on the students' pitches. And so we have several learning outcomes. Basically, from our MSU's perspective, the students developed awareness of food and nutrition related challenges, and they were able to connect that with the U.S. context as well. They developed a sense of global citizenship. They built analytical abilities in evaluating information in a case study. And then they were able to synthesize and apply it to developing a foundation pitch. And then they demonstrated understanding and how to use the Foundation Directory Professional, which is an online database. They were able to evaluate whether or not the funders were a fit for the nonprofit's mission, and then evaluate intercultural communication styles to achieve a shared outcome. So just a couple of challenges when you're developing a COIL. It really takes a significant amount of time and effort. Zion and I spent, I would say, a good 6 to 7 months before the August start date putting it together. We had to develop a lot of different resources. We did introductory videos, we did assignment case study sheets. We had a whole Google document just of resources for students to prepare them for this exchange. We had electricity and internet issues for the African students, which was we anticipated this to be the case. We shared that with the students, but it was definitely a challenge. And sometimes the time difference was a challenge to set up a time to meet, since a lot of students in my program, they work full time. And so that was kind of an issue as well. So we did a survey after the COIL experience, and 92% of the students reported that the experience changed their perception of another culture or a diverse group. 100% reported the experience introduced them to a different worldview. 100% reported the learning experience in the COIL module was positive, and 70% stated they would choose another course or subject that included a COIL module. And then we asked them to share one word about their COIL experience. It definitely was challenging, difficult, but we also see amazing, enriching, worthwhile, and unique. So I'm really happy to be able to share with you my experience with COIL, and I will hand it on to the next presenter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll believe my presentation is kind of summarizing what we've heard today, because what I got to do is, after I led the students to a study abroad, short-term study abroad in Mozambique, focused on marine conservation, a year after, I conducted in-depth interviews with them to figure out, as opposed to survey taken on the last day of a program, what were the actual lasting takeaways 1 year after? What did they remember? So I'll be skipping through most of it, but the idea to keep in mind also that this study abroad took place in the summer 2023. So the students were born in early 2000, and that's important because they are one of the first generations who are digital natives, who have their whole life been used to social media, been used to phone. And as we all learned, including now, we know this was, and especially in that location and in the activities they were doing, they were, first of all, they were immersed into the ocean. It was marine conservation. They were often on the boat. They were all often underwater, no access to their devices. We did not have internet where we were staying for most of the time, and for students, and electricity was an issue. So for them, what that program was the first time outside of that device in a group of people. They had they didn't know each other before, interestingly. Again, it's that type of generation. So this is the group. There were 19 students. this particular one towards the end after a community visit, but here they are now already a very cohesive group. I'll skip directly to the what I was asking them is, what were the most impactful moments that they still remember a year after, and how that changed? And basically the big ones were themselves. They all learned to scuba dive. So overcoming the challenge of scuba diving, being part of that huge ocean. We took them to do beach cleanup. And they are conservation majors, they are biology majors. They know about plastic pollution, but there was one thing learning it from textbooks or from instructors here, and the other one seeing, physically picking up the trash. That's I had a lasting code, seeing is believing. So it was very crucial. It's one thing to tell and the other thing to do it tangibly. And a huge part is lasting relationships within the group. They kept mentioning how there was friendships formed. So disconnect to connect was a big one, and directly to the practical implications of all of that. A year after, what stood out? The immersive part of the experience, not really the skills, but the fact of feeling themselves part of that community, part of the study group community. They putting the phones aside, it was not planned, but it turned out a very good tool because it made everybody be in the same room, see each other, talk to each other. I cannot overemphasize how important those real one. Every single I knew, so I traveled with them. I observed them all the time. They all seemed very confident during the study abroad. Every single reflection, every single one-on-one interview shared how anxious they were to travel with a group of people they didn't know. So this face-to-face interaction, putting phones aside, that was a big growth thing. And yes, we need to constantly have in mind that the current generation of students, they are digital natives. For them, the social media, social interactions is how they're first used to establish social, digital, social media connection, and only then face-to-face. And that has to be taken into account. They all left self-empowered, believing in themselves more, feeling that they can form bonds with strangers, and with higher appreciation for nature and its powers. Thank you.